Hey guys, it's me, Tori, aka Miss NG with the Naked Gardeners, and I wanted to share with you some of my journey in the past year, especially with the abundance of produce that we're getting out of our garden, my journey with canning, and some of the challenges that I've had, some of the lessons that I've learned, and hopefully it can help somebody out there that is just beginning this journey themselves. Now, initially, the biggest challenge for me was understanding that there was two methods of canning. I do know that the Amish water bath everything, and it's just a longer method of boiling, but I was introduced to standards and methods and even heard about rebel canning. It's kind of confusing sorting through all of the information of what you can do, what you can't do. And one of the biggest challenges for me was pressure canning. And that is initially the biggest fear that I had. Like, I was just petrified of pressure canning. It's because of all of the things I read and explosions, all of the fears, and it is something that I have overcome that I'm very, very comfortable with now. Now, water bath canning, which I thought all canning was, because that's all I ever saw my granny do. She had a huge garden, always had pickles, and so that's all I ever knew was water bath canning. And I want to say about 2 to 3 years ago, I started water bath canning some of the produce that came out of our garden, and I've overcome some big lessons with that as well. Now, with the water bath canning, I feel that my lessons with that didn't have so much to do with the actual mechanism of filling the jars and actually the procedure and figuring out the times that it has to process. All of that seemed pretty simple. The biggest challenge is finding the right recipe. You know, the most common thing I see with beginners is asking people, what is your favorite recipe? Send me your favorite recipe. And I'm guilty of that too. I did the same exact thing. And what I've learned is that that is not the right question. The first question should be to yourself, do you know what you like?
Do you know the Muffin Man? The Muffin Man?
Do you like sweet? Do you like spicy? Do you like just dill? Do you like zesty? You really need to know your palate, your flavor palette, to know what you really like. And I emphasize that because when I started, I got recipes that somebody thought was just amazing, but I'm not a sweets person when it comes to pickles. I am a spicy, hot, spicy lover of pickles. So the real question after figuring out what your palate is to ask for those types of recipes. If you know that you like just dill pickles or a certain brand in the store, ask for, hey, does anybody know the recipe for the Vlastic, or a really dill pickle, or a really spicy pickle, or a bread and butter, a sweet one? That is a better way to start on your journey, because you're going to waste a lot of resources like I did. I did a whole bunch of test batches just to find out what I liked. And I don't feel like I really knew, but I did know what I bought at the store before. So I could have cut out a lot of issues if I would have just asked for spicy pickle recipes. Now, when it came to pressure cooking, that was just an absolute fear thing. I found it very helpful to study, and Sid actually really pushed me to take a class, and I'm so thankful that I took that class, because it did give me confidence, and it made me feel more confident to be around other people that also had this irrational fear of pressure canning. And I just really did not have confidence in doing it at all. I literally had to have my hand held, and I'm so thankful that I did take a class initially. I'm so comfortable with doing it now. I think at some point in time I'd like to teach people that are afraid of it, because if I can do it, I really feel like somebody else can. And starting off doing bone broth for me was the best and easiest thing to do. That was really an easy thing for me to can and just get shelf stable and free up my freezer. So I was really motivated to gain more freezer space. So the bone broth did come into play, and Sid was getting really frustrated with me for having a pressure canner taking up real estate on our rack, and me not using it. So that was, I am glad that he did push me with that one. It has probably taken me over 10 times of doing 7-quart batches in my pressure canner, and I've gotten so good at it and doing it so much that I am having to do double the amount, and I only have one pressure canner, so that's been an issue for me. And also with my water bath canner, I have only had one. I can only do 7 quarts at a time. Right now, I am harvesting every 2 days well over 7 quarts worth of cucumbers. So it is taking extra time to do double batches in the kitchen. Now, I just was gifted from my bonus mom another water bath canner and another pressure canner. So that is something that I am so excited about, because this is going to free up my time. My time to do this stuff takes a lot, especially because I do spend so much time outside taking care of our animals, in our garden, taking care of that and harvesting, and I'm pretty much a one-man show around here aside from any editing on our channel. So having at least 2 of those things is going to be a blessing for us, especially because we are selling products. Some of our products are about to be going into a local store. We are about to be participating in a Rico ring in Paris, Texas. So we are starting to have customers line up for that for some of our products. And currently we've been delivering pickles and other products into Dallas. One of the things that I am not a big fan of with water bath canning is sanitizing the jars ahead of time. I love pressure canning, and now I wish I could pressure can everything because I don't have to sanitize with that. I realize that it's just an extra step having to go through this with the water bath canning. But that was also part of my lessons. I am realizing that things that are acidic based do need to be water bath can, acid based water bath can. Things that are not like that do need to be pressure canned. And that has been part of my journey. That was a lesson for me. After several different test batches, I finally came across a recipe that Sydney and I just love, and that's really the only signature pickle that I am making now in whole, in spears, in chips, and then in crinkle cuts. So I kind of like do a variety based on what I harvested for the day. Part of my lesson has been the tiny little pickles that I am harvesting. I try to get them as small as possible, and they're nice and crispy when I get them nice and small like that. And every day I'm checking twice a day trying to get them like that. But once in a while, I think that they hide from me, and I'll come across a huge one hiding that I have overlooked. They're not always huge, but kind of like a little bit bigger than I like, and those become my spears or my chips or my crinkle cuts. So when it comes to pickles, my lesson has been to harvest as early as possible and definitely growing a pickling cucumber. My favorite has become the Persian pickling. That's just going to be something I grow every year. It's prolific. It's delicious. When I harvest it young, they're nice and crispy. I have been cheating and using the pickle crisp, even though that these are young pickles. I'm just wanting to have them as crispy as possible. But a recent lesson I learned is that grape leaves, putting 3 to 4 into each jar, does a natural crisping. Now, I haven't been able to test it for myself, but a friend of mine has, and I watched a few things, and so I am very interested in growing grapes now, just to have grape leaves and do it a more of a natural way. That would be something I'd be a lot more interested in. Also, cutting the bloom end off of the cucumber. It's always the part that is lighter on the cucumber or where the bloom was. You always want to trim that off because there is something in there that will affect the crispiness of your pickles. So that is something that I didn't know at first. I know it now, and it does make a difference. I have quite a few, several canning books that are my favorite. Some cater just to pickling, some cater to pressure canning, but here's a list of the favorite ones that I have. And the blue ribbon is where I found my most favorite pickle recipe. Now, the recipe in the book I have modified to the way that I like it. I'm really not going to be sharing that today because it's not going to be everybody's favorite, but I do encourage you to first know what your palate is and then find a recipe that suits you. I picked a recipe that I could can by the quart. After doing several test batches and realizing that I don't like to have to wait until the next day, I want something a little quicker, I want something simple, because early on in harvesting, I might only get enough to make 1 quart. Now, as the season starts to ramp up, it's like every day to every 2 days with the 7 quarts. So I want to be able to make it by the quart. I want it very simple and easy. I'd like to be able to put in all of the recipe stuff that I need right at first, and it is a proven recipe. So I just modified that, and it's super, super simple. After I put everything in by the quart, I load it up with my pickles and seasoning and peppers and all of that stuff. And I'm very strategic with how I pack my jars, because when I start off, I like to get as many small pickles in there as possible, and then as I start to have just a few large ones, I will get them in there, save a few small ones, and kind of play Tetris when I'm making the pickles. Now, the pressure canner that I have is a Presto, and I've become very comfortable with it. I got a backup of exactly the same one that I have, while my water bath canners are different, and I'm just adjusting to this ball one, which, by the way, has been very easy. I actually kind of like the whole set it and forget it kind of situation. So that one is really an upgrade from just my Walmart version of being able to fit 7 quarts. And I get the largest capacity I can find. I haven't found anything that allows me to process anything more than 7 quart jars. Yeah, that's been the largest I have found so far. Learning how to can has been an incredible journey for me. It's beyond what I ever thought I would do, and I used to preserve just putting everything in the freezer, just kind of getting over that fear. I would encourage any of you that are uncomfortable with those things to just start with something. Start with something very simple. Feel free to ask me for something to start with down in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. I feel that I have grown so much in this process with my comfort and now having confidence with particular recipes. I don't even need to grab out the recipe book for certain things. Other things, that's not true. I say last year was kind of like my summer of cucumbers. This year I have about 60 pounds worth of frozen tomatoes out in the freezer right now, but I'm about to start making sauces, and that's going to be with the water bath canners. That was another reason that I was motivated to double up on all of the things, because some of the sauces I want to be able to have some meat in there, and you have to use a pressure canner with meat. And so this is part of the growth that I've had that has just made me feel a lot more confident in what I'm eating. This is stuff, most of it is just straight from our garden. I only have to buy, I think this year I had to buy a few jalapenos just because a lot of stuff I like is spicy. I want to thank all of you viewers that have encouraged me to share my process and some of the stuff that I'm doing in the kitchen. And I am just going to continue sharing as I feel like I have something to share, just anything that helps any of you. If you want to see the video where I was absolutely petrified pressure canning for the first time by myself, I'm going to put that off to the side and in the show notes below. And until the next time, thanks for joining me on this journey.